Hello, NFT Land. I'm Creatorius Rex, and we're here for another episode of The Twin, This Week in NFT News. And with me today, as always, is my co-host, Scott Leach. Scott, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Right.
It seems sometimes like there's not a lot going on, but then we just realize that there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
We have an incredible week this week. We probably should just get right into it. The figure that I want to bring up first is some breaking news, but I'll give people a quick rundown of what we're going to talk about. So we've got some news out of Twitter, PFPs. We'll talk about the new official PFP Twitter profile picture verification. We're going to talk about OpenSea data, another ridiculous week for this. Metaverse, a lot of news there. I thought Metaverse would actually be the highest or the top story of this week, but it turns out there's just other things happening as well. We got some more brands in NFT Lands. Maybe we'll talk about Looks Rare if we get a few minutes, maybe even a couple of projects. But why don't we kick off with, let me bring this up. Yes. Okay. So what we're seeing here, and this is at our Chen 8. If you guys don't follow the work that he or she is doing on doing analytics, you might consider looking at it from time to time. I look at it every couple of days. It's really useful. Just hits the APIs at OpenSea to see what's going on there. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing the Ethereum value that's being traded on OpenSea in any given month. So you see May in there and December. So that first really big peak is August. And then you see it goes down to September, October, November, December. December actually pretty good. We talked about that during December. But look at January. This is January through the 20th, actually through the 19th. So there's more than 10 days left in the month. And it's already over 4 billion in total value traded. We've hit a new high for monthly volume. At OpenSea, I suspect this is going to reflect a new high in monthly volume, ETH volume traded in NFTs overall and across all cryptos. What do you think?
Yeah, it's wild. I think it's awesome. It's exciting. It does seem like the space is maturing, I guess is a word, evolving, that their habits of how more and more people are becoming, gaining mastery over trading and collecting. And it seems like that is driving some of this, that lots of folks aren't bailing from NFTs. They're just moving stuff around to other NFTs. So we talked about this earlier, but or before the show, but getting into existing projects instead of minting new projects. Also, I do still wonder about that, like how much of this, when coins get a little slow or flat or in decline,
yes,
do crypto savvy people move to NFTs and start, doing more than they might otherwise?
It looks like a clear trend just based on what we've seen since last May-ish. And I think before May, the market was maybe too thin to really draw conclusions from it. And then as we got through the summer and into the fall, it wasn't really clear because we didn't have enough data points.
Yeah.
But now we have a few data points, and I'm not sure that this will be a trend that keeps up, but it seems like you're right that as the Ethereum price, the US dollar goes down, NFT trading goes up. And the inverse is also true. So if we see a big run on Ether, then we might see NFTs coming down. But when I looked at this number, I see something a little bit different. So clearly there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of people happy in the NFT world. There's not as many somber discussions going on. But this strikes me as very different than August and September. August and September were like a frenzy, right? I don't really feel the frenzy. Am I missing out on it because I'm not like trading daily right now? Or is it just we're at a different type of stage in the development of this segment?
What I noticed, what I've been noticing, it doesn't, I agree with you. I don't get that same feeling of like, it's like these stories I grew up in California, so we learned a lot about the gold rush, but we would read these stories about when they first discovered gold in California and just
Right.
walking up to the river and seeing these fist-sized chunks of gold in there. That's how September felt. Like you were looking for any project to hop on. I don't, did I just say September?
Anything you
That's
could
how
mint.
summer felt. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I think there's a lot of projects. What I've been noticing is that the big projects, the established stuff is jumping up in ways that don't, you're not seeing it go up 100x, but when you have a bunch of projects that were already at 5 ETH that jumped to 10 ETH, or that were at, 40 ETH and jumped to 80 ETH, that adds up. So I think that that's part of it. It seems like a lot of the established projects are cool cats. Obviously all the Bored Ape stuff, the Mutant Ape stuff, all of those things seem to be just growing. Doodles, World of Women had a huge bump. So I kind of wonder if that's because it's the value of those things is so high that's where a lot of that data is coming from.
Yeah, there's clearly the price of those transactions makes a difference, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the lower levels. We
Yep.
didn't talk about crypto skulls last week as we
Oh
planned,
yeah.
but that also drove a lot of nice secondary volume.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of things going on. It does seem to be blue chip focused, but then there's been some other things like Gemma came out.
Mhm.
I thought that was a nice little piece, and that pumped up a bit. There was some nice secondary trading on that. I picked mine up in secondary because I missed the mint. So there's some good quality projects coming out. There seems to be a lot of action on secondary for things that have been out for a while.
Yep.
And there's some other interesting things that happened. So it was big news about 3 weeks ago when Bored Ape flipped crypto punks
Mhm.
in terms of floor price. Just a few days ago, it flipped Fidenza too,
Mm.
uh, which which nobody had been talking about, right? Now you have to start thinking about this not just in terms of PFP versus PFP, but like all NFT projects versus each other. And I think Fidenza versus Bored Ape is a really interesting contrast because we're
Yeah.
talking about utility versus art. And we're not saying that
Yeah.
Bored Ape doesn't have art, but it's really much more utility and culture, whereas
Mhm.
Fidenza might be more art and culture.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I also wonder, this is just pure speculation, but are there, as people get more savvy in this space and build up their bag, are they looking to move up to bigger, more well-known properties? Are they trying to make the jump to get an ape, or to be that they see that as a form of status, or just a good uh, investment or utility thing that they want?
Yeah. There's
There-
clearly enough. There's clearly a lot of stories about that. I mean, you hear
yeah.
that like if you're on crypto Twitter at all, in any of the Twitter
Mhm.
spaces, you see it on Clubhouse a little bit, but much more on Twitter. People talk about how they basically flip up.
Mhm.
And if your thesis is that the blue chips are the ones that matter, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I can't fault anyone for doing that. Uh, I think the question is, what are the blue chips and what are the next blue chips? And uh, there. If we step back, we think about the blue chips. Well, why do you want to be in the blue chips? Because they're going to hold value, because they have the most active community that's giving you additional value, because they have the best collabs, all the above. I mean, what is it? And is it this idea that the rich get richer because once you're at the top and you get all these collabs and more income coming in so you can do more for the community, it becomes self-reinforcing?
Yeah, exactly. There's so many factors with this stuff that I can't find an analog to it. It's like Yeah, obviously apes are culturally relevant right now. So there's
Yes.
that. And the status factor is huge. There's just the straight up value associated that people are treating it like a stock or something that they're trading. There's the utility piece, all these things that are hard to it's hard to compare it to anything and know and anticipate what's going to change in the future. If suddenly a lot of celebs decide they're over apes, right? They're done with it. They're moving on to something else. What happens? Is it like clothing brands that come in and out, or who knows? Or does it still have value to people, or is
Yeah,
the utility still enough that that's relevant?
absolutely.
Art, I don't think does that as much. It doesn't really go. I guess it does. I shouldn't say that, but it's like, it's not like Van Gogh suddenly like, we're over Van Gogh. I don't care about sunflowers.
Exactly. Okay, well, let's look at one more chart here. So this is the number of Ether traded. So this is pretty significant, particularly since Ether's so low. So just think about transaction volume. But and then we just see NFT sold. So the NFT sold in January, that bar all the way to the right, with 11 days left in the month, maybe 12. Yes, 12. No, 11 days. Sorry. Almost to the height of August, September. So something special is happening here. We can just leave the audience to ponder this a little bit.
Yeah.
But definitely good news. I think people probably see that in their portfolio going up, and that's all good. But I think from a macro standpoint, I'm always very interested in what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, next segment. Oh, this is not what I thought I was going to see. Oh, I skipped ahead. That's why. We went ahead. We didn't talk about our breaking news. So
Yeah.
Twitter, just like a few hours ago, started allowing people to put their official verified NFT as their profile picture. So people have been doing this for a while, and you just put it up and it just looks like, hey, you have artwork where your circle profile picture needs to be. But you were one of the lucky few that got the early rollout of this. Why don't you walk people through what happens?
Yeah. So I saw that if I joined the Twitter Blue service, that I think is $2.99 a month or something, that I could upload an NFT as my profile picture. So I went ahead and did that to test it. And as soon as I clicked on my profile picture, a modal popped up that said, choose a photo or choose an NFT. When I hit choose an NFT, it connected to my MetaMask wallet on mobile. And then I could see my library and choose by
And did it look like
collection
your
or whatever.
regular MetaMask wallet, or was there a different UI?
When I so in the MetaMask app, it looks pretty close to the wallet. Within Twitter, when you connect, so it throws up the
Yes.
modal saying connect your MetaMask. You connect, it just shows you a gallery view. It almost looks like when you're accessing your photo library from Twitter. So that gallery grid view, it sorts by recent activity. It looks like, so it shows the NFTs that you received most recently. But you can also, there's a tab to filter it by collection, and then collection gives you, like it sounds, horizontal view of each collection, and you can grab the one you want. So I selected it and it confirmed it and put this kind of slightly rounded hex shape there, which I think is a pretty clever UI trick. So you can instantly see if someone's profile pic is an NFT. Smart.
They
UX.
talked about, we thought that they were going to do something like the verified user check mark. But this is smart. It's just a different way to give a visual indicator that this is something that's verified on the blockchain.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see if this sticks and becomes a universal kind of design pattern that we start to see everywhere, where if it's in a hex, it means it's a NFT. We'll see what happens there, but just curious. But it's neat. I think it's really cool. It'll be really fascinating to see how many profiles, how many of the apes that we saw on profiles don't end up being hexagons or other NFTs and that kind of stuff. So there is some neat utility outside of just status, which, okay, that's cool, I guess, but also credibility. Like, it's a good way. This could be a way to suss out a lot of nefarious folks or bad actors.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, we can bring the the social penalty for passing off someone else's PFP as
Mhm.
your own will start to get ramped up. I think this is a really great development in the space. We talked about this at length a couple of months ago when they first announced it. Uh, I will say that I'm a little disappointed in the way this is rolled out, though, because you were not a Twitter Blue subscriber. I had just subscribed to it last week for some other reason. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, oh, I'll try this out for a month. And I go in right now and it's not offering me this option yet.
Yeah.
So I can see it's like, it's smart. It's a good way to get people to try out Twitter Blue, but I
Yeah, I
assume we'll
wonder
all
if
have
it's
it by the end of the week.
yeah, I wonder if it's that or if it's just random, some
It could be,
devices. But yeah, who knows?
could be.
It's clever. It's probably a good way to get a lot of people to buy Twitter Blue, because if you dropped a lot of money on an NFT, you're probably willing to drop $2.99 a month. Although I'll be curious if they just let anyone do it at some point. I feel like it should be that way.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go off script here for a
Yep.
moment because a question occurs to me. Should we or do you think that Twitter or Discord is more important to the NFT ecosystem today?
Yeah. I think they both are in different ways. I think Discord is absolutely essential at this stage.
Yeah.
But Twitter does seem to be the way in and the way to, I don't know, Discord is so noisy. I've got so many channels I subscribe to or servers I subscribe to that I can't even follow.
I've gotten to where I rely on Twitter more again. I'm
Yeah.
trying to use Discord be the primary. Um,
Yeah.
but Twitter, it's just I have a little better control
Yeah.
over what I see, and it's hard not to use Twitter just because it's a good way to get information out and like so many people to connect with them to find because if you think about
Yeah.
Discord's at the atomic level, and then Twitter's at the market level. And
Yeah.
so like there's a lot of people that I want to follow or I want to interact with that are not necessarily in or we're probably in some common Discord servers, but who knows which ones. And then you forget to DM them there, so you just do it in Twitter.
Yeah.
It's sort of a bad question because I can't imagine either one of them not being part of the mix at this point.
I think they're different and they're serving different purposes right
Sure.
now that I don't think it's possible to. I mean, of course you could just use one, but I think anyone that's doing it's seriously trading is probably into both of them pretty
I'm not sure
deeply.
you could just use one
Yeah, I don't think you can. Not
because
without, I mean,
because Twitter doesn't really have community features. I mean, you could do not. No, you really couldn't. Just not at the scale that you're trying to do it here. Um,
yeah,
it's because Discord's so important at the atomic level, the project level.
yeah,
Twitter's actually not that great at the project level, but it is important for dissemination, information
mhm,
dissemination, and bringing new people in, generating awareness. So yeah, they're equally important, just in different ways. Although
yeah,
I
yeah,
would say that Discord's probably first among equals because the the things you need to do when you're running a project are so specific, and Discord's just best aligned with that.
yeah.
That if you didn't have that, if you just had Twitter alone, I think you'd really struggle
It'd be hard. Yeah,
unless you were strictly dropping art. So some artists who are just dropping art, they can even get away without Twitter and just doing Instagram, and they already have an audience, and that audience will come and they'll buy their stuff.
yeah,
Uh, but I am thinking that uh, Twitter probably gets a little, or excuse me, Discord gets a little bit of an edge. But it's hard for
yeah.
me to even conceive of removing Twitter from this. Something else would have to fill its spot: Instagram, Facebook, Reddit,
Yeah,
something.
there has to be, yeah, because especially with these utility coins or tokens that come out, that um, the utility hasn't been structured exactly how it's unknown how it's going to roll out, right? So you need the Discord to inform people, to let them ask questions, all that kind of stuff, up and until someone comes out with a mechanism that I think we're going to start to see a lot of changes to wallets, that wallets are going to become almost like their own apps and pieces of software that can do other things. For example, as a if I'm a creator of a project, I would like the ability to post a message to all the people who hold
Yes,
my
of
thing
course.
without, and I get this, there's a privacy issue. There's people not wanting to get spammed, but there has to be a clever way to do this. Like, this is a very solvable problem.
Oh
Even
yeah.
if I had the equivalent of Twitter, I have a 10,000 PFP project. I can post a 140 character update that anyone who holds that could see it in the wallet or
Yeah, I
some
like
easy
this.
to read spot. And they could just be like, oh, here's an update from the creator. It's not like getting spam in an email box. It's in a place where you could choose to ignore it or not.
Well, yeah, and you could actually you could have settings based on your
Yeah.
NFTs to accept or
Yeah.
not to accept messages. I think the interesting functional aspect of that a lot of people will overlook is that you would probably then need to get the wallet providers to do verification on projects. So they would have to verify who the actual spokesperson is for the project.
Yeah.
And I know you will recognize this from personal experience, people are immediately going to say, well, I've got 5 people on this project. I need them all verified. Right.
Yeah.
And so then it's going to be like, and then, oh, I need to be able to delegate and all these other things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it might be a slippery slope that isn't great. I think Discord is very difficult. The way Discord does notifications is very, very hard on everybody. There's no
Yeah,
great way to, and this idea that you can only silence these things by going into each individual server afterwards, when it can be hard to find the server if you have more than 5 or 6. I
Yeah.
think this Discord is still
Yeah.
living in this world where they think people have 4 or 5
Well, and they were
Discords
also
that they're in.
Yeah, in their defense, they weren't designed they didn't build that product to be an NFT community gathering spot, right? So they stemmed from a different
Yeah, but it's
thing.
probably driven
Exactly.
half their
Now,
value increase in the last
yeah,
year.
so they're
Maybe
I'm
more than
certain
half.
I'm certain they're gonna address it and roll out features that address that stuff. But I do think there's an opportunity now for a decentralized solution that even if somewhere in the metadata you could hide text, and this would be easy, you could hide a lot of text, but anyone, when that NFT is created, you put wallet addresses that have the ability to edit or modify that text. That could be another way to do it. The way that, if I go
You can do that
into
anyway.
yeah, so but like Rarible has that, right, where I can there's hidden content. Only I can read it because I hold the NFT. Something like that, where if that just became the norm, where people got used to doing that, then the creators could easily update
Yes.
that metadata, but make it the interface to do that could be slick and easy to use.
If your metadata is not on the chain. So
yes,
it's
yeah,
not,
so
if it's not in the contract.
yeah.
So it can still be decentralized. And so we do this right now with Niftorian. We made the decision that we wanted metadata to be separate. Some of the metadata, there's certainly metadata that's on chain, but we wanted a lot of the characteristic metadata to be off, not part of the contract, off chain, so that we could update it from time to time. And I think there was a very fleeting moment a few months ago when people were like, no, everything needs to be on chain and he's in the contract. And then everyone sort of forgot about it. I would say that the reason that it's so important to have a little flexibility there is the more things you put in the contract and put on chain, the more expensive it is to mint, the longer it takes to execute transactions. I mean, all these things, it's like this compounding effect. And if you haven't actually written a smart contract or been part of the development process, there's a lot of little things that would surprise you, which are big usability issues.
Yeah. I think there's going to be, I think as we see more use cases, people are going to, some of those like slightly religious beliefs about what should, everything should be on chain or not. I think as we see more use cases, people gain a higher tolerance for where that makes sense and where it doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, like in a gaming environment or something where you want to do things cheaply and quickly, you don't necessarily, there might be some other mechanism to do that, where you keep some stuff off chain, or the thing evolves over time. And I don't know. There's something neat that you could be part of the history of an evolution of an NFT because how you use it in a gaming environment or something.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think you want this to be able to evolve. And in fact, we've baked that into the Niftorian project. We're anticipating down the road, there's some attributes which are acquired.
Mhm.
And then those will stay with that NFT, going forward. And so
Yep.
there's this idea that people can acquire an NFT and it has value based on aesthetics, rarity, whatever it is that the market values.
Mhm.
But then over time, if the owners do certain types of things, it can gain these other attributes, which then could be used both within the community or outside the community on an ad hoc basis for people to organize, like they do. Like when
Yeah.
we see this in apes, we see it in robotos, a number of other things where certain traits people will get together. Like the DMT folks, the gold fur
Mhm.
folks,
Yeah. Yeah.
the punk batos. I mean, they all have these separate groups
Yeah.
that they sort of self-organize, but it could also be from the project level too. You could have like these formal things.
Sure. Yeah.
If you've reached this attribute or you've acquired this attribute, you have
Yeah.
this attribute, you can do certain things.
Yeah. I think the other one that's interesting is if you start to say, I have a PFP or a character, I use them in a game or I do something with them and I gain these new attributes. Those new attributes could be minted as a separate NFT that then attaches to the other NFT. You know what I mean?
You're
It's almost
taking
like
this further than I thought. Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah. Well, I was thinking about it because the Vaynerchuk announced this, that he was going to, for VFriends, there's always questions early on of how do I use this to get into VCon? Do I,
Oh yeah. So,
he's
you're
now,
getting
they said
new
that,
NFTs.
yeah,
You
you're
get
going
to
to
mint.
NFT ticket. But it's a smart, when you start to think of them that way in these like separate chunks, you could say, okay, I have this character because I hold this Niftorian owl in my wallet and I played this game. I now have this new set of stats or this piece of armor that is an NFT that only works with this one owl I have. If I sell the owl, those attributes aren't attached to it anymore. It only works if I have, you know what I mean? There's interesting ways that you could start to attach other properties.
Yes, I agree with that.
Metadata. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Well, I think just this idea of the purity of like on-chain in the contract versus off-chain and melding the two, this strikes me as very similar to a lot of the sentiment several months ago around ERC 721s versus ERC 1155s, which are just different protocols in the Ethereum network. If the viewers aren't familiar with that, 721 is the original. There's a lot of people who are absolutists. They don't want to hold 1155s. However, in the interim, everyone holds an 1155. If you own more than 3 or 4 721s, someone has given you an 1155. And so, and then once you look at it in your wallet, there's it depends on where it's been minted. If it's from Polygon, maybe you don't see it on OpenSea. There's some other things that are going on. But for the most part, when you're looking at your wallet, if you just see a bunch of pictures, most people don't remember what the protocol it was minted under. They just see an NFT. They see whether it's popular or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on from that. So we've had a good discussion there, and I want to talk about the metaverse. So we've had a couple of significant metaverse stories over the last week, 2 of which are rock solid, and then one is, I think, more speculative. But let's start with the rock solid one. So this right here is the investment portfolio of one company, and that's Animoca Brands. And that one company just raised $359 million in a new funding round at a $5.5 billion valuation. Okay, so let's just say in the abstract, okay, that seems like a big company. It seems like a lot of money. But of course, they've been at this for a long time, and they've had this like nice little slow ratchet in their valuation. No, that would not be true, because just 3 months ago they raised $65 million. Right. So that was, call it 1/5 of what they just raised. at a $2.2 billion valuation. So in 3 months, they doubled their valuation and they picked up a lot more cash. What do you make of this?
Uh, um, uh, it looks like they're playing to win. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. And they're betting hard on it, and yeah, someone's going to win this space, and they seem like they're in a really good position to do that.
Well, interestingly, they position it as they're not playing to win. I think there's two different ways to think about play to win and what
Yeah,
playing to win means, but they are really focused on this open and free metaverse.
yeah,
So this is their thesis, and so everything they invest in has to have interoperability, no walled gardens, all these things. The founder has been very vocal about the fact that he sees Facebook and Tencent is particularly threatening to this.
hmm
They're both trying to create their own big siloed walled garden.
yeah,
But Apple,
yeah.
some
I
other
should
places
preface.
might be candidates for that too.
Yeah, I should preface what I mean. I don't think they're playing to win in like a zero sum game, but I think they know that the metaverse is going to be a thing, and there's still some questions about how exactly what the hell that even means.
Hmm.
And they seem to be spreading it around to make sure that they're in it, however it manifests. Yeah, I like a lot of what they're doing. I get whenever we talk about this every week. I bring this up whenever someone starts aggregating a lot of stuff together and they're a big corporation. I get skeptical.
Yes.
But they're also the people that can actually all that money they're putting into it's what's going to build it up and allow opportunity for other folks to come in and do something really cool.
Yeah, and they don't. And people who don't follow VCs, but and maybe some of the people here do, but they're not looking for all these to be successful. All those little logos on that slide.
Yeah.
Their expectation is that they're providing fuel for a few of them. You know,
Yep. Yep.
if they've
Exactly.
got,
Yep.
I think they're up to like 150 investments right now. If 10% of those were successful, they would be thrilled.
Yep. Yep.
That would actually be a really good hit rate for a VC. Now, for those folks that aren't as familiar with Animoca, we'll give you some perspective here. Maybe those logos were a little small to read, but they're the primary investor behind the Sandbox, and that's the Sand token, is I think a lot of people will know. They actually do deals with projects as well as invest. But just on the metaverse side, they're also an investor in Dapper Labs. They're an investor in Decentraland, several others. They're actually investors in crypto wallets like Ledger and a couple of the others, in MetaMask, obviously one that most people are going to be familiar with. And their biggest area is blockchain gaming. So they were an early investor and have a big stake in Axie Infinity,
Mhm.
several others. They actually have gone back to some old school tech companies like Atari. They put money into them for their
Mhm.
metaverse ambition. So this is a company that I kind of feel it's a little like SoftBank in 2000. If people remember what
Mhm.
SoftBank was doing, just becoming basically a big internet portfolio, uh, maybe the Berkshire Hathaway type of business. It's not quite like that because there's a lot of other investors in these spaces, but it is a much more aggressive portfolio around a single thesis than you'll see other venture capitalists making.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you said is good. The fact that they're still, uh, all these companies are doing their own thing. You don't see them Animoca trying to drive what they're about. I think that's a good sign too.
Okay, so the founder of Animoca, talks about Facebook, is the biggest threat to a free and open metaverse, or one of the two
Mhm.
biggest threats. Um, and there was some Facebook news that just came out. I think it was yesterday, or might have been this morning, from the Financial Times, saying that there's an expectation that Facebook is, or there's information that Facebook is working on an NFT marketplace. So we talked about in the past Coinbase having this huge user base, and putting an NFT marketplace is like leading a horse to water. It's going to bring all these new people into NFTs. Do you think this also correlates to Facebook?
I think so. What I'll be really curious to see is how much of that is it going to be a side chain, or is it a mainnet NFT marketplace? How is that going to work? Um, I think that's going to change stuff. Well, I don't know if it's going to change who gets into it or not, or how many new people they bring in, but I think that it's going to, whether they're going to sort of align themselves with some of the decentralized philosophy of this space, or whether they're going to go with a side chain that's their own walled garden, I think is going to be interesting. But I think they'll get people into it. I'm not sure. I assume it's going to be mostly new people or sharks that see, or savvy folks that see opportunity.
I had really thought about that. So that would be the place to troll around in Facebook to find good deals because they're going to be less savvy.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Somebody I can't remember what they said. There's some comment about that. And it was, basically, are you going to want like a crypto book or crypto? It's like they're trying to do like a crypto punk in Facebook, Facebook punk or something like that. Is it in your future? And I have trouble believing it is, but it is really interesting because anytime you have a large audience, there are things you could really move a market very quickly. The downside
Yeah.
is whether sometimes that audience doesn't permit you the right to take them down that path because they think of you for something else. Coinbase is interesting because for them, it's just like the strategy is just so clear. They've got a lot of people who have crypto,
Mm-hmm.
most of whom aren't doing anything with it. They don't really make money unless you do a transaction. How can I do something for these people to make more transactions and to get deeper and deeper, like to commit more capital to this space? And so those are all very good things for them. Facebook's quite a bit different because most of their users are not using crypto. I can just look at the math and I know that's true. So there's already this hurdle, but they have this other end run that if people start enjoying the metaverse, then I don't know, maybe that's enough impetus for them to say, oh, I'll learn this easy way. Or maybe Facebook provides a way to purchase with fiat, for example, and then, flip it into crypto. There's lots of ways that I'm sure you could do that if you had a willing consumer base.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's ways they could do it that would even convince hardcore blockchain people to participate. But what I'm wondering is, which route are they going to go? Are they going to try and bring in new people to crypto, or are they going to go a different route? I mean, if they did what Looks Rare is doing and they released a marketplace and a coin, like,
well, yeah. But Facebook can't release a coin because the regulators won't let them.
Yeah. So I wonder how much of that stuff will impact their NFT aspirations.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, let's talk about another really giant company. Now we think about Facebook. It's a pretty big company. Let's talk about another really big company called Walmart. So Walmart made a move in the past week, or excuse me, in the past 2 weeks. It was actually on December 30th, I believe. They filed for trademark protection. So this is not patent protection. This is trademark protection. And if you're not familiar with trademark law, people can use the same term as somebody else who has trademark protection, as long as they're using it for a different market, different use case. Walmart, looking ahead, thinking they might want to be in the NFT space or maybe the metaverse, or, we're going to have to do shopping somewhere, right? Decided to file trademark protection for the use of the term Walmart Connect for a number of different solutions. What you'll see pop up a number of times in the text here on the page, you can read, we have a story at niftorius.com about this, we'll break it all down. You'll see the term NFT, you'll see digital tokens, you will, on a couple different things, you'll see virtual currency or cryptocurrency, and you will also see the metaverse and this idea of virtual shopping spaces. So this is sort of could have gone in the next section too, brands and NFT lands. So it's sort of this new brand movement. What do you think?
I don't know. I think it's good. I
Another
mean,
big company.
yeah, I buy it. I get why they're doing it, and it's again, I think it's a good and a sign of the times that this again, all this stuff is for real. And if you're still on the fence, like uh, these guys aren't messing around; they're taking it seriously, and I think it's good because it gets more people thinking about the space. But I still, um, yeah, I don't know if the best we can do is a virtual Walmart. I don't know. Maybe I'm just cynical.
Yes, and I was in a Walmart yesterday. I'm in a Walmart very infrequently, but I was in there yesterday because it was the place that, at the time of day that I was going, and the thing I
Yep.
know on it, it was the place that I thought would have it.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with Walmart. I think
Yeah.
it's it provides a service that people want,
Sure.
so I have no problem with that. But I think this is just really interesting. It's just like, first of all, big brands recognizing they're not as far behind this curve as a lot of us
Yes.
think, right?
Yes.
That there are people who are saying, wait a second, this I should pay attention to. And this, I think, is
Yeah.
a really important signal in the market.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm a little interested that it's a retailer. So it's one thing to
Yeah.
me that Nike's getting involved, Adidas, they're part of culture. But a retailer, that's not, a multi-brand retailer. I mean, they have their own brands too, but
Mhm.
Do people want to mint NFTs around Walmart store brands? I don't think so.
Yeah, this is the part I think where it's going to be interesting, right? Because you have a lot of the sort of promise or potential of blockchain, whether it's coins or NFTs, is that you eliminate a lot of middle folks. And if your whole business is around that, I get that they're trying to come in here and be relevant. And I think they might even have sincere aspirations to provide value to folks. But yeah, I don't know if there's a marketplace where I, as a seller, can connect directly with a buyer. Do I need Walmart to facilitate that at this stage?
Well, you already use OpenSea or Rarible
Exactly, yeah.
or Foundation. So you
Yeah.
are actually using a retailer. These are all just marketplaces.
Yeah. Or I do think there's another thing that we haven't quite, it's going to happen, but we don't really know what it looks like yet, which is the connection between NFTs and physical goods.
Yes.
That there will be an NFT version of a lot of physical goods, and that will somehow
it might be really important.
happen.
Yeah.
It could be that you can do something in the metaverse that allows you to bring an NFT into Walmart or earn a Walmart coin or a Walmart whatever, and then bring it into a physical store to redeem something.
Perfect example. So let's say they sell gaming consoles at Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
So if you purchase a gaming console, it wouldn't surprise me if Sony and Microsoft start giving away NFTs that provide special access for 3 months or a year to a certain service. I could also see them having an NFT that might be specific to if you purchased it in Walmart, basically a co-promotion type of thing, where you get a different set of benefits or perks associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because everybody knows, the NFTs are really great tools for access control.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think once people realize that and how deep they can go with it, I think there'll be a lot more perks we start getting. I mean, all these things are going to become, in a way, I think, like all the redemption programs you get with your Safeway card or whatever else. And because you can immutably prove that someone had something when they have it, if they still have it, where they might have been or taken that thing to, you can start to reward them for that behavior. I think there's going to be points where you could both be a independent contractor and making money from some of these companies by holding NFTs or by doing things with them, and or also redeeming things from those companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to our next segment, a very popular one called Brands and NFT Lands. So Walmart probably qualifies for that, but we left it in the metaverse area because they're looking for trademark protection around their use of Walmart in the metaverse. But we have another one, Adidas Originals, very popular NFT drop last winter, I guess late fall, early winter. I guess it was in the fall. So that's done pretty well. I think it topped out at like 1.3 Ether. It's down just below 0.7, I think, today. And it minted at 0.2, if I remember correctly. In any event, it's done pretty well. What you're going to get here, they just announced, this was already indicated, but they didn't tell you the timing. By owning this NFT, you actually have access to physical goods. So you just mentioned physical goods. Well, here's a perfect example. You bought the NFT, not necessarily for the NFT itself, but for the physical goods that you get. And there's, they call it 4 items. I think it's really 3. The first one they're indicating here is they're going to do the tracksuit, I believe. And it's like this neon yellow, it looks like a tennis ball yellow tracksuit. And, they just clarified that that'll be the first one. I think most of us thought that the hoodie was going to be the first one, so maybe a little disappointed. But and what you're going to do is you're going to be able to connect your wallet, put in your shipping details, and they will ship it to you. However, there is a claim process that is going to require you to spend gas. So you're basically going to wind it. Now, granted, maybe sharding will take off and reduce our gas costs for everybody. Maybe you'll get lucky and you'll do it at a time of day when gas is low. But I could actually see a situation here where you're spending as much in gas as you would spend on the physical world product. And so owning the NFT only gets you access to spend more money.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these problems are going to get solved at some point here, whether it's improvements to the Ethereum network or your ETH NFT gets you a redemption pass on Solana that you use to, I think people are going to figure out slick ways to make this work, and still it'll still be legit. You'll still know that the person that's getting it is the person who holds that NFT at the right window when the snapshot was taken. But yeah, these clunky parts are funny. And I've been hearing this a lot with all these, ENS and looks and a few of these different coin drops that happen, people that aren't claiming them because the gas is too high.
It's totally legitimate too. I mean, I think that particularly if you think the value of this thing is 0, but most of them like looks, there's pretty much no way you could have spent as much on gas as, well, I guess if you had very low trading volume. But looks or SOS or some of those other things, it's just like the value of them was much higher.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's stay with Adidas, which is interesting because they now have the deal or the collab with Prada called Resource. So they've done a deal with Prada. What was it, last year or the year before, where people, they basically designed the shoe, Adidas shoe with Prada. Some people liked, some people didn't. So that's pretty cool. So this isn't the first time they've done that. I think there's 2 things here. So this, first of all, is they're creating a way for people to, and I'm not really sure why Prada's involved in this. I don't quite get that, but you can sign up, and if you get selected from the wait list, it allows you to sort of upload an image, and you run it through an algorithm by an artist that they're working with, and it basically creates this new image. And what's going to happen if you're selected then is you'll be able to mint that yourself on, I think it's Polygon, as an NFT. And so that'll be yours, and it'll have the provenance and be part of that collection. And you'll also be part of this 3,000 NFT collage that the artist is going to put together, which is going to include yours. And 15% of the proceeds of the sale of that collage are going to be distributed amongst the 3,000 people who were selected to do their upload. So those are, I think all those things are very interesting just on the face. There's another angle here, which we'll talk about in a moment, but what are your thoughts about this type of collab and trying to enable, any NFT token holder to become a creator?
I think that this is really smart. I think it could fail miserably, but I think it feels to me like it's embracing the spirit of a lot of this stuff. And I think it's a spot where, I mean, this can work out. Like if someone creates a design that goes off and it's associated with these brands, like everyone benefits, right? I don't know. I dig it. I like it. I know I've in general been skeptical about all the brand stuff. Um, Nike and Adidas, I was a little bit like, okay, but it's starting to make more sense to me now that, Prada's obviously more fashionable, I guess. Oh, maybe that's not true than Nike's at this point, but it's obviously a brand we associate with fashion. And I think that that's a status thing, and NFTs are a status thing. And this makes sense to me. And I think the collaboration aspect of this is really cool.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I believe, and I think we talked about this in the past. Adidas, Nike, they're part of culture, like,
Mhm.
and they're part of culture. They're of culture. They've shaped culture and some of the things that they've done. So it seems logical for them to be there in a way that maybe it doesn't seem for Walmart to be there. Uh, but I thought this was interesting. I would say that their original drop into the metaverse with that we were just talking about with the apparel tie-in seemed
Mhm.
like a really good idea. Like,
Mhm.
nice innovation for the space. The way they're handling the token burning and then reissue of tokens, as you collect each of these items, I think is also
Yeah.
very clever. Uh, so that's really well aligned innovation. This one I think is it doesn't seem to me as close, but it's okay. It's like a brand
Yeah.
building campaign. You don't always have to have something related to your product line. It just didn't seem to be as tightly aligned as the first effort that they put out.
Yeah. As far as it relates to Adidas, yeah, I agree with that. I do think it's a neat, these experiments are cool to me that they're actually trying stuff and trying different stuff, because even if it fails miserably, regardless of whether I want one of these or not, I think they're pushing it, and that's great. And we'll see what the community actually wants. Do they want this stuff or not? It'll be
Yes,
interesting to see if brands
they're going to
still
want
have
this stuff. Well,
relevance.
I mean, people are going to participate because basically it's like free money if you get selected. So,
Yeah, but what I'm curious about is, over time, are we going to see like that happens a lot? Like everyone hops in because the money will, as the metaverse starts to emerge, or this notion, whatever shape it takes. I think there's still a lot of questions there, but will brands still be relevant, or will they just be spots where people can make money real quick and then they go back to their own original content, whether they be the NFTs themselves, whether they're apes or whatever, the PFP or artwork or what have you. Will brands still have a place, or will they just be? Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm
yeah,
curious
fair
to see
enough.
what happens.
Okay, well, let's talk about this last element of this drop, which I think is very interesting. So I bought a couple of the Into the Metaverse Adidas NFTs when they came out, courtesy of having a mutant ape. I was able to get into the pre-mint or the pre-sale. Uh, I sold one to basically cover my costs on
Mhm.
the first two that I bought, because there was a limit of two. I certainly would have bought more if they'd allowed it. Um, okay, so that's interesting. The price to get up, was, I think it actually did go over 1 ETH at one point, but very briefly. Mostly it was between 0.75 and 0.85 Ether. That seems like a really nice take home. I thought about selling it, but the one thing that held me back is I thought, oh, you know what? Adidas just might use this as like a perk to get access to something else. And here you go with Resource. There are 3,000 slots. I think it's 1,500 are reserved for token holders of Into the Metaverse token holders. 500 are going to go to people who tried to buy but failed.
Hmm.
And there were a lot of people who failed because it went in like 10 seconds for
Mhm.
those, for the 10,000 that were available after the pre-sale. And then I think there's another 1,000 which are just going to be available to the general public. So there are 30,000 tokens in circulation. I don't know how many wallets that represents at this point, but we'll call it 30,000 tokens. So you have basically a 10% chance of getting, or a 10% chance. No, you have a 5% chance of the token holders of getting in. And then you have another a 3% chance if you want to go into the public. So it's not great from a perk, because you always like the perks that give you a higher likelihood of success. But it's still one of those things where if you have the OG item from a project, they just might use it in the future to give you a little extra utility.
Yeah, I'm seeing this across the board right now, and it's the projects that I'm very conscious of the folks who do that, and I hold quite a bit. I think I hold more than most people in terms of I hold on to stuff and don't sell it, sometimes to my own detriment, often I think, but I love it when that happens. When it's a established project that's doing well and I get something. It's Punk's Comics, I think, is like that. That's one of my favorite projects. I think it's
you've been rewarded handily for that.
Yeah, I just got a bunch of planets this week that I claimed. I got these ape tokens that let me get a special edition version of the give me a shot at a second edition cover, or the second issue cover, variations with the apes on tops that they licensed for that. I just like the stuff that they're doing. And it's rewarding folks that like, man, I've made so much off the one comic I bought way back when. Now have like close to a dozen.
I'm trying to think if
I've
I've sold anything other than I sold two VeeFriends.
Mm-hmm.
And one was to recoup my investment, and the other was to basically free up ether so I could invest in other projects. And I'm trying to think if I've sold anything else. Maybe I've done one or two here or there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily a good strategy if like your goal is
There's people that
asset
flip
value
and they're just looking
maximization.
for quick. Yeah. There's the people that get in quick and they flip them because they made 5x, and then they do that daily. So they want access to that. You know, someone could make an argument that even though you have a VeeFriend that's gone up all this time, you could have taken out and gone back in. But every time I've tried one, I don't just think I have the patience or stomach for that, but also I get bit when I do that, because I start reacting to what I think is going to happen instead of what I fundamentally believe
Are you
and
referring
passionate
to
about.
your mutant?
No, I think that was an educated decision that I made. I wasn't forced into that. I knew I wanted to free up a little bit. It was a bad decision, but it was still, I'm happy with that. I'll live with that one. That went up so astronomically high. I'm totally fine with
Well,
it.
it's the same thing where I sold VeeFriends at I think 3.5 and 7.
Yeah.
And both times I hit like a local high. So I was
Yeah.
feeling pretty good about it at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
And then, for 4 weeks afterwards, it was below that.
Yeah.
But the fact that those things ran up to 23 for just a floor VeeFriend, that was tough. But at the same time, it got me into a lot of other projects. So I'm not sure any of those other projects. Well, I guess it probably helped me get my mutant. If I think about it that way, and that's had a really heck of a run. So
Yeah. Those have been great.
Yeah.
I think it's the thing where I went through this phase of early on, like, okay, I just got to mint something. And then I started to realize, okay, I got to start minting 2 of everything so that if they do well, I could sell one and keep one. And then when VeeFriends came out, I just fundamentally believed that he was going to do something with it. So I got a bunch. But then I started doing this thing where I would mint 12 of something. So it's like, I'll just mint 12.
That seems like
that's
too
how
many.
crazy it was when it was happening. Well, I started thinking, like, if you're going to make moves, and like, you need to have a bunch of them to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's right. But I think unless you're really like totally bought in, like 12 seems like a lot of capital tie up. I could see minting.
Well, this was at a time when I was doing
fast.
These were ones where you're minting it for 0.08, and you like, oh, I can buy this other NFT I see for one ETH that I like. Who knows what's going to happen? Or I can buy a dozen of these new ones. And right now, all NFTs are going off. So I did that in Yetis, I think was the first project I did that. And then I quickly learned, like, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yetis. Well, actually, I was just on a Clubhouse room. Someone was talking about their Yeti, that they just gotten a Yeti. They were all excited about it. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll make
I
a
still
comeback.
like that. I actually ended up getting out of that one clean because, like, when it dropped way down, I bought one of the Apex guys.
Yes.
And then it climbed up briefly and I was able to sell
There you
that
go.
guy.
There you go. Okay. We talked about a lot of things today. Brands, data, metaverse, all good stuff. Scott Leach, anything else you want to talk about before we leave, or should we just wrap it up?
We can wrap it up. I wanted to ask you, I knew you'll probably do a whole show on this or something, but now that things are picking up again, I know you kicked off your project right as things got really cold. It must be, your optimism must be slightly stoked.
I think so. Okay. So this is a good conversation. I'll just, this would be maybe interesting to some people who are watching, who are like following these spaces. So yes, we did start our project in the midst of the recession. We've not done we do have a PFP not because that was really our goal, but because it makes sense with the utility in the community that we're building. But we haven't launched that yet. We did do mint passes. So it's actually a founder's collection. These things are like really nice art on their own. There's 13 of those. Scott's one of the creators. So we have some of those out there. So people have those. They have early access to the PFPs. But yes, we're talking about maybe doing that in the next couple of weeks. The good thing is we did all the work, so we can actually put it out anytime. We just probably need a 2-week runway to let people know that it's coming. With that said, a few things have evolved around the project. So we announced the NFT Artist Accelerator. We've just selected a number of artists for that. That'll be announced probably next week. We've got some new advisors on the project as well. I guess they've been on for a couple of months, but we haven't announced them yet. So we're going to announce those. We actually have a new roadmap item that I'm trying to decide whether we announce it or we just wait till after our first mint. But yes, it's good to see that like we didn't have to wait 6 months for this to get better. I still don't know, like for us, because what we're doing is we're really focused on artists. And most of the action isn't around artists or the interest in artists. Most of the action is around pumps. And so there's a little bit of a disconnect between like the ones that are saying, hey, I'm going to pump this really quickly. I'm going to focus on the floor for the next 6 weeks. You should be able to get in and out and make a little money, versus what we've been doing is we're saying, oh, we're going to run this new thing. We want to help thousands of artists get into the space and to be successful. It's like a 5 or 10 year project. Not to say that we don't expect it to have some value accretion in the near term, but we're still figuring that out. So if anybody has any great ideas, we want to reach out to me on Twitter at CreatoriusRex. Let me know if you think there's a good way for us to put this forward. But I am pretty heartened because we've got great artists in the accelerator. I've got a couple of speakers who volunteered to present at it who are really very, very high profile in the space.
Awesome.
And so I think a lot of that's going to be really good for the artists. And overall, I think it'll help us build our community.
Fantastic.
All right, everybody.
It's exciting. I'm looking forward to this.
Thanks a lot. It's at Scott Leach on the Twitter, and you should definitely look at his bag. You want to look at his portfolio of NFTs. He's had quite the successful year in 2021. I'm really excited to see if he does as well in 2022. I'm sure he's hoping he will. I'm hoping he does too. I'm Creatorius Rex. Check us out on Twitter and at Niftorius.com if you want to check out some of these articles on some of the items we talked about today. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.